Welcome to Make and Decorate, a podcast for makers who love to sew, quilt, knit, and decorate. Hello, everyone. I am Stephanie, and I'm glad to be back with a new episode. Today's episode is a chit-chat with two main topics. I'll talk about YarnCon 2025, held in Chicago last weekend, and secondly, I will chat about my last trip ever to JoAnn Fabrics. So get your beverage of choice and cozy up with some knitting, sewing, or whatever you make for a little make and decorate chat. Starting with YarnCon, which was this past weekend in Chicago. This was my first time at YarnCon, and I have lots to share about it. Let me share a little bit about the venue. The event was held at a building called the Journeyman Plumbers Hall. And this building is approximately 120 years old and is a historic building. And it has very fascinating architecture, I think. And it was just beautiful. So I had just as much fun looking and studying the architecture inside this building as I did looking at all of the booths at the show. So let me just go off on this little tangent first about the architecture. The building's design is done in what is called Beaux Arts architecture with some Art Deco design details. And in order to give you a better idea of what Beaux Arts architecture is, I found a page on the website architecture.org that describes Beaux Arts architecture perfectly. I'll read a little bit from this page and put a link in the show notes if you want to read more in detail. If you're wondering what Beaux Arts is, it's a style influenced by classical forms that flourished in Chicago post 1893 World's Fair, seen in iconic buildings like museums and libraries. And in Chicago, you can find Beaux Arts style architecture almost everywhere. It is influenced by classical Roman and Greek forms, and Beaux Arts emerged as the dominant style of architecture in the United States between the late 19th century and early 20th century. Some famous buildings from that era that still stand today are the Art Institute of Chicago. That is a beautiful building. I love it. And I especially love the two lion statues that flank the entrance of the Art Institute. The Chicago Cultural Center, which back in 1893 was the Chicago Public Library, and the Museum of Science and Industry. Some of the defining features of this Beaux Arts style architecture are classical details, including columns and pediments, highly decorative surfaces, statues and figures embedded within the facade, raised first story, and stone or stone-like materials. And that is Beaux Arts architecture in a little nutshell. And then this particular building also incorporated Art Deco in it, which is more geometric and kind of like a more clean, even though Beaux Arts tends to be a bit more ornate. I think what was really refreshing about this building is that it wasn't overdone. All right, enough on that tangent. Let's talk about the event itself. There were about 60 or more vendors, and some of them I were familiar with, but most of them I was not. And I did come out of the show with a lot of new favorite ones that I saw and I learned about. Since I had never been to the show, and actually based on my experience this past fall at the Renegade Craft Fair, which was held indoors, I hadn't been to let's back up to the Renegade. I hadn't been to Renegade in several years, and it had always been in the summer outdoors. And so they moved the date to September, and it is now held indoors. It's a very different experience. And when we went to the Renegade Craft Fair, there were so many people. I generally do not do well with large crowds. I think that at craft events and conventions that are in my world of making and decorating, I do much better because I'm confident of what's there and what to talk about and all that. But put me out at Navy Pier with a bunch of people on the 4th of July with the fireworks, I will be like running for the hills. So this one, okay, so Renegade, it wasn't as successful as a shopping trip. And I don't know, it was, to me, there was so many people in a smallish type. It wasn't a small space, but I don't know, the way it was set up. I mean, you were just like constantly bumping into people. You couldn't really get a good look at the booths and not feel like your decision was rushed. So at this one, I looked up their website and noticed that they did have a list of vendors really nicely organized. And then the vendors had links. And the other thing is, Renegade has really a lot of vendors. This YarnCon, I don't know, I'm guessing it was around 60 plus vendors, like under 100. And I just a little bit more like succinct. And I started clicking through some of the links, and then I saw some really cool things. And then I ended up just clicking there were only a few that did not have any links, but most of them did. I got an idea of what they sold. I saw the different types of artisans that were going to be there because it's called YarnCon, but there were also um, other makers selling their wares there, like jewelry makers, jewelry designers, and bag makers, um, ceramicists. And so it was fun to kind of click through that the night before. And let me tell you, that was the best idea ever because as we started to navigate through the show, I started to recognize, oh, I saw that and I want to see that booth for sure, and zeroed in on it. My goal, though, even though it's seems ridiculous, but because it's YarnCon, but my goal was not to buy yarn because I don't really need more projects of knitting or crochet right now until I finish the ones that I have started. Also, I wanted to buy handmade things from artisans. The other thing about YarnCon is that it is comprised of vendors that are local to the Chicago area, not meaning just Chicago and the suburbs alone, meaning like Wisconsin, the surrounding states. So Wisconsin, Michigan, Missouri. But there were also, like, I met a vendor they were here from Alabama. I liked the concept, and it feels good to support small businesses, small handmade businesses like this. There were lots of yarn, and they were almost all hand dyed, gorgeous, beautiful. Oh, it was just eye candy for like miles. It wasn't that big, but it was just absolutely beautiful. Now, there were a lot of people at this show as well. We did get there early before it did start getting crazy, and it didn't take that long actually. So I would say like within a half hour that we showed up, it just was like thronged with people everywhere. But the energy was so great and everyone was very nice. The vendors of the booths are typically the owners of these businesses. My experience with them was great. I think too, this was just a 2-day show, Saturday and Sunday. We went first thing on Saturday, and I feel like that's the best time to interact with these booths and the people working them because they're fresh, energetic, and they're not like exhausted from a day and a half of vending with, all of these people. So starting with this booth that was right in the first aisle, it was perfect. It was this handmade jewelry by Michelle Friedman, who is a Chicago jewelry artisan, and she makes this absolutely gorgeous fine jewelry out of gorgeous metals like oxidized sterling silver and also 14 karat gold vermeil. But the unique thing is that instead of gemstones, the gems were felt. And the felt was inside of the metal parts of the jewelry. It is so gorgeous. And it's just so innovative and unique. I did get a pair of earrings, this beautiful drop earrings with the heart shape. And inside of the heart shape was the felt. And I got the fuchsia color felt. It's like a deeper jewel tone. Most of her felt colors are in that really rich, deep jewel tones, which really makes them pop from the metal. There were just a lot of great things to see. Some of the vendors that I already am familiar with and I saw there were Mochi Mochi. And this business is also a Chicago based business. And she sells knitting pattern kits. They are like amigurumis, very small little, either, a lot of them are animals and some of them are like one of them's a zombie. But they are all miniature. They're very small. So that's why I just consider them amigurumi, even though that is crochet. And you knit them with like a size 1 set of DPNs or however else you like to knit in the round. All of her designs, I feel, are just great and so hard to choose from. That's what happened to me the first time that I saw her product, and I literally could not decide. So this time I made myself decide because I really wanted to try these knitting kits. And so I got 3 pattern kits. One of them is of a cat hanging onto this branch, and the twig is included in the kit, which is the branch that the cat is hanging from with one arm. Very cute. And then I got a dog inside of an ice cream cone. So these figures are really fun, based off of animals, and they're tiny. They're small. So that's the gist of her design and style. And I hope that I can knit the third pattern I got was of the zombie. That's the one my husband wanted for me to get for him. And that zombie is only 1.5 inches tall. So we'll see how difficult these are to knit, but they, the other thing of them being small is that you could potentially finish them fairly quickly too and have like, yay, another finished project. Oh, I did end up getting yarn though, but I got just enough. I didn't get very much. I just got some alpaca yarn. I couldn't resist. There is this booth, and the alpaca yarn is directly from an alpaca farm, and they have photos of the alpacas, and on the yarn that they sell, there's a photo and then the name of the alpaca that it came from. So cute. And the one that I got is from Pearl, Perle. And it's all natural tones. So no crazy colors with this alpaca yarn, and I like it. Uh, and the other thing that drew me into this booth was there was this just gorgeous, I don't know, 12-inch tall alpaca. Um, it's not a stuffed animal, but it was sort of like an alpaca figure with um, the fur, really soft fur on it, and a furry alpaca. And as I got closer to it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I really want that. I'm so sorry for the barking dogs, but my husband had just come home and I just did not want to lose my train of thought, so I continued recording. There was a little note on there saying, sorry, it's not for sale. I think the booth owner saw me and saw my disappointment, and she was just like, "Well, there is a smaller version of this alpaca in one of the bags of yarn. They're not kits, but it was just like a little grouping of yarn that had the little alpaca in there." And I was like, "Oh, yes, I would love that. Love it." Um, and so I snagged that up. And then I got another package of yarn, a few skeins, and the display merchandising was really pretty. And she had this smaller wrap, tone on tone, with like a raised pattern to it. It was really pretty, and that pattern is on Ravelry, so I took a picture of it, and so I think that's what I'm going to make with the yarn that I got. So I'm glad that like I got the yarn, but not willy-nilly, have an actual project to make with it. And there is one more skein of yarn that I did get from the show, and it is one that my husband picked out and wants me to knit him a hat. And this yarn is very interesting because it's glow in the dark yarn. Half of the booth with a cover, it was almost like a tinted booth. And then there was a black light in there, and the black light showed the yarn glowing. It was really interesting. It was very cool. So we got a skein of that so that I can make him a hat. And that yarn is by Supernova Dye Works. And again, it's hand dyed. The skein is not a continuous glow in the dark, but it's intermittent and with really pretty hand dyed colors. It's beautiful. It really is very cool. So that is the only yarn that I got. And then I just got like a few other things, including these super cute earrings. This was by a company called Oink Pigments, and they were mini skein earrings. How cute is that? So about these little skeins were about maybe an inch long and looked exactly like a skein of yarn in like a hand dyed color. So cute. So I love those. And then the last thing I'll tell you that I got, which was very cool, are I did get a circular knitting needle in size 8, but these are hexagonal shaped needles. Similar to like the square needle concept, where it is supposed to reduce hand fatigue and kind of like not be uncomfortable while you knit. Plus the metal, they're made of metal and it's a very lightweight. And they had some on a table with knitting started so that you could try them out. They had a set of DPNs that you could knit with and then a circular. So I tried the circulars and really loved the weight and the feel of these hexagonal knitting needles. So that seems to be the thing these days, is to create knitting needles with different shapes like square or hexagonal versus the traditional round. And I guess anything to help deter hand and wrist fatigue while you knit. Overall, my experience at my first YarnCon was excellent, and I would definitely go again next year. And I would also definitely pre-check out the vendors and look at their products and have a little bit of a mission um, determined before just walking into the show willy-nilly. So the second topic is my final shopping trip at JoAnn's. So I did one trip. Oh, I think it was back in early March where they had really recently just announced that JoAnn's was starting their going out of business sale and were closing their doors forever in May. And I know you may not want to hear any more talk about the closing of JoAnn's forever. But I have just one last segment to share with you. And it's everywhere. There's no escaping it because I sort of also do have the JoAnn's topic fatigue, but it is a big deal. It is so big that Saturday Night Live did a skit about it on their world news or whatever that. I don't watch it regularly, but my husband likes it, so he sent me the video clip of the JoAnn's, and it was as if there was a character on there as being JoAnn, even though we know that there is no like actual JoAnn. It was funny. Saturday Night Live version of funny, I guess you could say. So yeah, it's everywhere. I did want to make this final trip partly for nostalgic reasons. Aside from Hancock Fabrics, which has already closed many years now, JoAnn's was the start of my sewing story and experience and also part of my youth. So that is the nostalgic reasons that I have for just taking one more trip and stroll through the store, walking through almost every aisle. But I also did have a reason and needed to find some jewelry making supplies for a gift to give to my niece for her birthday next month. And I was curious to see if the prices had gone down from the first time that I had gone there. And the answer is not really. A lot of people in the store were talking with one another about the way that things had been priced and that it did not seem like a typical going out of business sale because they raised the prices before they took discounts from them. So essentially, you really weren't getting discounted merchandise, except for holiday items, mainly Christmas. Those were marked 70% off and were excellent deals. And I did get one holiday item, which was like a 25-yard roll of wired ribbon. I did get a couple of other really cool things. One of them is something that I have been wanting for a few years now, and it is a bowl for yarn. It holds the yarn and has a little guide for it to use while you are knitting, and that you can continuously knit without the yarn rolling all over the place. So it's a yarn bowl, but it is in the shape of a sheep. It is so adorable. It's available in many different versions, and it has the bowl part uh, is the sheep. There's a face, and then the feet on the bowl are the sheep's feet, and it's so adorable. So they had one left in pristine condition, and I snagged it up. That's what these types of sales are for. Feeling like you got the last thing and at a good deal, which this was. I was happy with that. And then the other thing that I thought was like, yes, it was worth the trip is there were anchor embroidery floss spools of thread. So, like Aurifil, Anchor has these embroidery threads on spools. They're kind of like short little um, half-size spools, and it is separating, like a 6-strand floss, but it's on the spool. And those were priced really well. So I must have gotten at least a couple dozen of those. And I got them in the stepped color so it could be easily stitched in ombre type colors. And that's something that I have not done yet. Usually, I don't know, I get like a couple 2 to 3 colors in the same color, like a light, medium, and dark, but I've never done sort of that ombre purchase of embroidery threads where you buy every single color in that family, and they're so tonal that one color is not that different from the next one. It might be like a quarter or a half step, half shade lighter or darker. So I did that with these and cannot wait to stitch with it and do some, I don't know, some tonal types of designs and patterns. Aside from the fact that the discounts were really not that deep, my final trip to JoAnn's was pretty pleasant. I was happy with what I came away with, and I'll give you a few helpful tips in case you are planning to go to a JoAnn's before they close. I would avoid the sewing machines, craft books, and anything that is not at least 20, really 40% off and more. The sewing machines discounts were not very good at all from what I saw at my JoAnn's. And a lot of the machines were JoAnn branded, which do not have warranties because there is no more JoAnn's. So those you buy at your own risk, and you risk whether they will work right outside the box. So I would definitely stay away from those. And it seemed like fabrics were not moving either. I did take a look through some of the fabrics, and the only ones that I saw that I really would want were these denim apparel fabrics by Lucky Brand. It's a designer line, and Lucky Brand is an apparel ready-made brand as well, and it's sort of like this bohemian style, and denim is in a lot of their clothes. They were really nice fabrics. So if you do make clothing and want to snag some of that up, I think it's a good idea. There are a lot of items that aren't priced. There's just maybe a vague percentage discount sign that sometimes it applies and sometimes it doesn't based on what section the item is in. So those, the best thing to do is if you have a strong interest in it, put it in your cart and have the cashier check the price first before you decide on whether you're going to take it or not. That's like the best and most efficient way to handle things that aren't priced. Take your time perusing the store, and if you kind of treat it like a little treasure hunt for hidden gems, it can be really fun. And like I said about the threads, I was very excited about those embroidery floss. And the funny thing is that that was the only thing in that aisle. Almost everything else in the embroidery aisle was gone, bare shelves. But man, this rack of threads, I don't know why there were so many left, but yeah, I scooped up whatever I could. And with that, I salute and bid farewell to JoAnn, who gave me decades of joyous craft, sewing, quilting, Cricut, paper crafting joy throughout these years. And although this door is closing, I am sure another door will open for all of us crafters and makers. And this will bring us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. The next episode will be a guest episode, and I am so thrilled and honored to share this guest with you. I will be talking with Sashiko artisan Atsushi Futasuya from Sashiko Stories. And if you haven't already, please check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/makeanddecorate. There are free membership subscriptions and also paid tier subscriptions with a bonus podcast episode every month. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, take some time to make and decorate. Bye-bye. Please help support this podcast by following me on Instagram at stephanie.socha.design and my YouTube channel at Make and Decorate. Also, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/makeanddecorate, where you can subscribe to receive an extra podcast episode every month. Until next time, keep making and decorating.